Hello, everybody. Welcome and great afternoon. Thanks for everybody joining in. And I know the lighting feels a little dim in here. Let's just throw a little more light on that. No, that's too bright. Um, how's the lighting? A little dark in here. Um, anyway, welcome back to another live stream, everyone. Thanks for joining in again. Let me write that in here on the sidebar, and feel free if you have any questions. Today's going to be a little bit of another fun one. What do we have here? What do we have here? That is not my new car. No, I did not buy one of these yet. I mean, run. Right there. Yes, run. Well, you probably do some walking there along the ways between while waiting at the shop for some servicing. But they're a lot of fun. I will say, I'll give them that. Some pretty cool cars. But that brings to the conversation about today's video and today's live stream. And again, feel free to drop a line in the chat box there if you want to kind of add along the way. But we kind of want to dive into the idea of what are those must-have features. Obviously, I was holding a key fob. What are those must-have features in any cars? I mean, there's a lot of young buyers and drivers on the line here that are, in the 20s that haven't experienced some of the older technology. And I would say not even technology. A thing like a butterfly window is not technology. It is what it is. It's a feature, but it's certainly not technologically advanced. So I kind of want to throw it out there. If there's three critical features, not necessarily tech, it could be tech. What are those important features at any cost, at any generation, not just of what's available today, but from what you know back in the day, what would you be looking for three of the main must-haves, those must-have features of a new car? Must-have features. And no, autonomous driving is not a feature that I care for because I'm a driver. I'm an enthusiast, and I like to consider myself. I'd rather be behind the wheel than in the back seat. Limousines are all fun, but I'd much rather be the focal point in that vehicle. I'd rather be pulling the gears. And so, if we're talking about some of those key must-have features, anybody here have any thoughts as to what they'd like to have? We have Mia Wu says reverse camera blind spot indicator. Those are absolutely great features. The F-Type I had all that features, and I caught it myself a couple of times backing out of the driveway. And I had the backup camera, but I also had those cross lane detections. So when I was backing out and you couldn't get a good view, you get oncoming traffic coming, it kind of stops you, warns you, beeps and chimes to tell you that, hey, there's somebody coming. Those are definitely good safety features. And if those are must-have features, I understand. I mean, nobody wants to have an incident. And clearly, if you have technology that can help avoid incidents, I mean, that's a win. What about driving a car like a Lamborghini Revuelto? I mean, you can't even see over your shoulder. You can't see anywhere in behind you in the three-quarter in the backs. So you need technology now in some of those modern day cars. So I think that's a very welcome modern day technology, I would say, is the backup cameras. As long as people don't forget to actually use their mirrors. I mean, the mirrors and good driving behavior and tactics and strategies help also prevent. I mean, that's what we did many years ago. And those are how old I am. I get up there in age a little bit. So, hey, Mario, how you doing? Heated seats and windshield. Yeah, in Canada and northern states, and I would presume, and a lot of Europeans, Eastern Europeans. I'm actually from Ukrainian descent. Not that matters to anybody here, but I'm going to throw it out there for those that do care, which probably there's one or two maybe. um, that it's cold there. It's cold there. It's cold here. And having heated seats is absolutely great. And not just with leather interior, it's just absolutely great having heated seats and a heated steering wheel. Because if you get that turn the steering wheel, heated seats, um, and in two shakes, it's warm and comfortable. So you're right there, Mario. I would agree with that. And the windshield helps too, right? Some cars that have the heated windshields, because it takes a while for that actually defrost to come out of the dash, because that only happens as quickly as your engine that warms up. So usually in a cold winter when it's minus 20, minus 30 degrees, it can often take 10, 15, 20 minutes to get proper heating out of there. So in which case, then yeah, it's nice to have electric heat on your windshield. So yeah, the more of that we have, the better off it can be. How about we go back a few years too? I mean, let's talk about going back old school. Mario, we had a chat about this here recently. Um, and I think from my perspective, if I could, we can't really get them anymore. We can't backdate, unfortunately. But if more manufacturers created manual transmissions, I think if every car came with a manual transmission, I'd be okay with that. Now, I mean, granted, there's some cars that are too quick, too powerful. It's not really that effective to run manual, but a manual transmission, if it's an option, I'm always going to take that option. Now, we know, unfortunately, it's no longer an option for most cars, but it's a great thing. It's a lot of fun, a lot more engaging. So to me, that's a great feature. Texama says the remote start with the heated seats and steering wheels is gold. You betcha. Remote start right here, right? You hit the old remote start button, the vehicle starts up. And actually, for when I had the app on my phone, I had the Jaguar app, and you could literally set it. You could remote start it. You could set the temperature desired in the car. And I know a lot of cars are doing that, but you could preset the temperature that you wanted in the ambient temperature in the vehicle. You could lock it. You could check your fuel level, make sure we weren't going to run out of fuel while you were warming it up. There's a million things you can do with your app on your phones nowadays. And I think that's kind of cool, if we're being honest. Like, I mean, a lot of people, they live in apartments. You imagine living in a high rise or something, and you want to activate a remote start, and your car's in the alley and down below at the bottom of the high rise. It could take you 10 minutes to get down there. You activate it on here, and it'll even give you feedback two-way that it'll tell you if it's running. So I think that's a great technology. Ahmad says, I would say drive settings, i.e. sport mode, econo, etc. Yeah, I've seen a lot of cars with those different mode settings that actually makes a massive difference, and others that it just doesn't really seem to do very much of anything. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool, because you can really soften everything up to give it a real relaxed throttle response. I've driven some Mercedes, so did some reviews. For example, I'll give you the GLE. I did a GLE Mercedes review here recently on the other channel on 6-speed reviews. And I went through that vehicle. Actually, that was a fun one to review. And if you want to go for it, feel free to go check 6-speed reviews and see that review. But I did talk a lot of the features on that car. And what I liked was the driving modes. And the driving modes off-road, it does give you sort of it actually elevates, ride height changes, the softness in the suspension, and also the way the throttle responds. When you put it in the real softest mode, you activate it and you come out of a corner and you hit it, and there's like very gradual. So it's very intended for fuel savings, and for winter driving, you don't want to be too jerky. So I think it's pretty cool. Absolutely. I think those are neat features. Mario says convenient access to get in the car without your key. Yeah, comfort features, proximity sensors, just by having that key fob in your pocket. Again, I keep grabbing this, but you could just have your fob in your pocket, and away you go. Now, we know there's been some problems. Recently, we heard about Kia and Hyundai and not having the push start, having old school, and they were easily stolen, those cars, and that was going through a big recall or a big to-do. That being said, these two can create a little bit of a problem. The proximity, and people, You heard what's going on in Toronto, Canada. A lot of vehicles are getting stolen because people are leaving these by the front door of their house, and then these thieves go just on the other side and they set up this antenna, this field, and they're able to steal that signal from here and go and break in and steal your car. Sadly, if your key fob is too close to their antenna or their field. So yeah, I mean, there's some drawbacks, but there's definitely a lot of benefits. If you're going to do this, put in a Faraday's cage, put in a metal box, or at the further back end of the house or something. But that's a little trick, a little tip for you. Mario's also saying, with winter coming, I'm just thinking about features that make winter better. Yeah, I would. I mean, I think that's fairly accurate. I mean, I look out today and the sun's shining. It's pretty nice today, but I mean, I go 2-3 days ago and it was. I mean, we had temperatures that were. I mean, it was -5 overnight, and it got as a high of +5, and that peaked for about 2 or 3 hours, and it was cold as crap. So it's nice to have those features. So yeah, when you live in these northern climates, you know, you do appreciate, you know, block heaters. You do appreciate remote starting and you know, heated everything. They're great features to have. Luke Walker says, "Good evening, Mark." Hey, Luke, great to hear from you again as well. I think we chatted with you last week too. I am in Florida, where we don't need heated seats, only a handful of days in a year. Um, what is that? Horses for courses. However, I believe living in Florida, all cars must be amphibious. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we know that there's been their share of storms over there, and we heard from our in-laws there who lived in Orlando that they just scathed through some of the hurricanes, and that Milton was a big one, and I think they just saw some trees get smoked. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, sit on high ground. You don't want to be in low ground, and in Florida, they have other challenges. You know, in Florida, you got to worry about those 2 or 3 or 4 hurricanes a year. In California, you worry about flash floods and big fires. And in Edmonton and Calgary, you worried about freezing your fingers to the bone. So we all have something that we got to worry about. So Luke, yeah, you betcha. Brutal hurricanes. Yeah, that's 100%. The hurricanes are nasty. We get our share, not of hurricanes here. Clearly, we're kind of landlocked. But I would say we do get tornadoes from time to time. So the amount of devastation you can get from that too is maybe not quite to the same magnitude for the most part, but it has been known to rip up land and destroy properties too, pretty good. So MB, would you buy a new 3 or 4 series BMW sedan these days? I only drive maybe 5,000 miles a year, so the extended warranty isn't really it. Thanks, or it really isn't worth it. I think yeah. I mean, would I buy a new one? Yeah, for sure. I think they're great. If I can lean toward the B58, I know I talk about that one quite a bit. I mean, it's a little extra money for sure, but I think what you'll find is the resale is better. So you kind of get that on the back end. So you put your money in, you get a better driving experience, and then you get the resale at the back end when you do sell it in, say, 5 years. They'll be easier to sell, and you'll have more enthusiasts showing up at your door looking to buy them. And of course, enthusiasts think with this, or no, not with this. They think more with this, like I do. I think more with this sometimes, and I sometimes end up overpaying for stuff. So, but yeah, a 3 or 4 series could be a fun car if you get a late model. Think 2018, 2019, and newer. Go with something in that territory, and you'd be good to go. Or brand new, of course. Marius has never experienced it, but if I had a convertible with a dark leather interior, I'd have cooled seats. You know, Mario, the F-Type I had, it had the ventilated seats, so it had heated and cooled seats in it. And I drove that thing. I mean, I drove it a little bit in the wintertime, but it was mostly a summer-driven car. And I don't think I used the cooled seats. I might have used it once. But I think, if you're going to a wedding or you're going to a special occasion, you got your suit and you're all dolled up, I guess the last thing you want to do is have that swass going on and your back's all sweaty because you're in a hot, steamy car. So it's nice to use the cooled seats there. But quite frankly, 9 times out of 10, when I was driving the car, it was just going out for a fun rip on the back roads. And I never used the heated seats. I was usually in shorts and a t-shirt. And like they say, windows down and 70 miles an hour. That's my AC. And so at the end of the day, that's kind of how I saw it. But yeah, I mean, cooled seats can be nice. They certainly can. They have their moments. So we have, what do we have here? Rufus the Doofus. Love your retirement channel. This one's pretty great too. And no, thanks, Rufus the Doofus. I appreciate that. I love the name, by the way. Original names, that's great. It's better, you hear these names like John Smith. Okay, well, there's probably a million of them on YouTube. So that's cool. That's very original. I love it. And I do appreciate the support on the retirement channel as well. Now, welcome to all the channels. I mean, Exotic Car Place, Retirement, which of course retiree is me, 6-speed reviews, which I'm slowly creating a small library of car reviews, as well as Easy Car Buying, which is, talking all about the finances and the economy and the business end of the car business. So Scott Jones, heated seats, can't live without them now. Yeah, I would agree, Scott. I don't know where you're living, but I would agree. Like where we live here in Alberta, it's a must. It's pretty much a must have. MB, thanks. In 5 years, it would have maybe 25,000 miles. So it would keep it at least a decade. I was worried about the cheap plastic parts failing due to time at very low miles. A lot of times they say cars that get driven less are actually deteriorate quicker. I think that can happen. The plastics, I don't know. I mean, don't hold me to this. I know gaskets can often see deterioration with age. Gaskets, the bottom end of the engine, the internals don't particularly like long sitting times, but the plastics themselves, as long as they're not subjected to UV radiation, they actually seeing less heating and cooling cycles. I'm going to go an assumption here that the plastics generally don't see the wear with longer just sitting time. It would be more the gaskets, the oils, the fluids. That would be more my concern for sure. So Rufus the Doofus says, never saw 6-speed reviews. Yeah, well, have a look. I don't know if I linked it in, but give it a chance if you like. I don't have a ton of content in there yet. I just sort of started it a while back, and I'm trying to get more access, more content, more cars. And really it's more of just just more of a time constraint issue right now. I am trying to develop that channel. I do have some big visions on that channel. And I love the idea of reviewing cars. I love the idea of going through top to bottom, bringing some comic, bringing some fun and attitude to new cars and doing reviews on these things. And I like to give it my perspective, because there's a million car reviewers out there that are on the buy by these big vendors and the OEMs. And when you're doing that, you're always going to sort of balance a lot more. Yeah, I like it there versus I don't like it. So I want to tell it more like it is. So I want to be more independent. And the intent is to get more vehicles from outside sources, borrowed from friends, from families, cohorts, people that maybe are in the business, but not necessarily selling cars. That way I'm able to speak more freely and openly and provide my true feedback as to what these cars are all about. So yeah, that's what the channel is really about, more being raw and real rather than just being a bought and paid for by some corporate entity. So that's the idea. But yeah, give it a look. 6-speed reviews. It's an up and comer for sure. LGX2. Haven't seen your review channel. We'll check it out. Yeah, I do appreciate that. I know I don't talk about it a lot, and the reason I don't hype it a lot is because I've been spreading out the reviews. I don't have a lot of reviews in there yet, so I don't want to drive traffic and bring all this traffic, and then they show up and there's sparse reviews. But the full intention is to continue building that channel. So please do give it a look. And I mean, I would love it if you guys want to subscribe to the channel. I could use more subscribers, because realistically, part of this is the monetization aspect. Okay. Sometimes getting these cars, if I'm not lent them, if people don't lend me these cars, I have to rent them or borrow them or pay for them in some way. Like if I see this new car and a rental company has one available, I'll go down there and it might cost me $250, $300 a day to rent it just to do that review. But I'm not making anything on that channel, which is fine. I'm not there. The intent isn't necessarily to make a ton of money. The intent is to get the best products, to get the best access, and doing so, just trying to monetize it. So as soon as I can get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm sitting right now, I think I'm in the six something. I'm getting close to 700 subscribers on that channel. It's looking up. It's looking very promising. As soon as I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm then able to monetize. Once I'm able to monetize, I can transfer some of that money over and utilize that on car rentals and access to some more cars and get better content. I do plan to actually bring other personalities into that channel. So I do promise it to be quite exciting and quite fun. Let's just see here. MB says, yeah, heated seats and heated steering wheel are a must. You betcha, 100%. If you live in a northern climates, they definitely are. I don't have them in my old Ram. I got an 03 Ram. That thing's a heap, but it gets me around. LGX2, thanks. I appreciate the sub there, LGX2. No, I do appreciate that. And feel free to say hi over there when you're over there too. My truck doesn't have heated steering wheel. It doesn't have heated seats. It doesn't have heated anything. But it has a good heater, so it keeps me warm in there. But my wife's got heated everything, steering wheel and seats. And and it's awesome that way. So I can appreciate it. And I get into her car and it's like a treat. It's so nice. Let's just see. What else do we have here? We have Bill Wickert says, I want reliability, rust proofing, great performance. Reliability is the most important. Yeah, totally right about that, Bill. It's funny, and I was talking to actually Mario. I'm going to shout out here to Mario. We were talking actually yesterday about this offline, and about somebody had asked me this question. What? And if you're listening in, because the actual person that asked me this question is a viewer. I just don't know if they're on the line right now, but they asked this question. What's a better exotic car, Ferrari or Lamborghini? And so my question was, or my response was, well, wait a minute. Depends what you're looking for out of the game. Performance from the outside looking in. So if you're a viewer watching the cars go by, you could make all kinds of, debates about which car looks better. But I would say the majority of the time, the Lamborghini is going to warrant a little bit more eyes, a little bit more head turning. That's been my experience. From the driver's seat, the Ferrari 98% of the time is going to dominate the driving experience. So then the other question, to Bill's point, is reliability. So if you like performance, they both sort of meet the intent. What is the better car? This is a loaded question. And maybe I should leave this for another day. But I will say, when it comes to reliability, and even in exotic cars, it's equally important, because this individual that I spoke to, that I ran into, actually stopped me in the street and he recognized me from the channel, and he said, we got in a long, great conversation about this. You can have the coolest, sexiest supercar, even sports car or luxury car or whatever. But if all of a sudden you come out, you've got your date, your wife, friend, whatever, you're coming out, your car's parked in the front of the big restaurant, and there's people in the patio and everybody's watching, and you're flipping up the big doors and it's all, wow, look at the drama. And then the car doesn't start. Well, there's the reliability, isn't that? Then you feel foolish. So to me, reliability, and to Bill's point, I totally agree. Reliability is fundamental. When you talk about electrical, a lot of people know I have a bit of an electrical background, so I'll just share that with you. If you know, you know. Dealing with inspectors, they don't even care half the time if the circuitry works. They just want to know that all the system is bonded and grounded, so it's safe. And if you talk to most mechanics, You ask them, what's the most important single part of any vehicle? 80% of the time, they'll tell you the brakes, because you can get moving, but if you can't stop, you're in trouble. So it's all about safety, reliability, and that's the sort of the backbone to any great car. Reliability is important, and I agree with that. Number one, reliability. Number two, well, take your pick on priorities. Some people like the looks, the style, economy, technology. I like performance, and that's why I always said life's too short to drive boring cars, because while all of those elements are important to me, all of them, there's always that underlying, I love performance cars and I like the way they drive. So, um, Luke, thanks for your honesty, Mark. Lots of fake car reviews on YouTube given cars by manufacturers. There are. I'm going to do a shout out here, and I know he doesn't need a shout out. I'm a nobody. That'd be cool if he mentions me once or twice in his videos. But our good buddy Doug DeMuro, I love his content. I think the guy's amazing. I love his very candid, his very colorful and entertaining way of presenting like that. Everybody loves Doug DeMuro, right? Doug is great. He's been around a long time. No muss, no fuss. Lots of great access, lots of great content. And I could only, right? So Doug's great. But I see Doug as being more of one of the honest reviewers too, because I know how Doug kind of started out. At least my understanding was he started out kind of doing similar what I'm trying to do, and I'm just trying to get it off the ground. And he started reviewing some of his own cars, and he transitioned into borrowing friends and rentals, and then he transitioned into other people just reaching out to him because I know he was sharing links, and then they said, "Hey, if you want to review my new BMW, I'd be loved for you to drive it and review it." So then he would start participating. And so he was speaking more of coming from a true reviewer's perspective. And I think Doug is great. He's truly, from what I can tell, extremely honest, and integrity is a hard thing to find in this business. So I'd like to kind of follow, that type of path of where I can speak truly and honestly and not worry about corporate, Honda telling me to play nice in the sandbox. Cause I just want to be, I don't want to bash anybody, but I want to be real. And I think that's just the best way to be. Luke Walker, can you link your channel you speak of? I'm sure I could do something like that. If I can find that here shortly. Mario says, happy wife, happy life. Always, you know it. Happy wife, happy life. I don't think I need to say anymore. It's funny. That's a funny phrase. I actually ran into that when I was in Italy. Actually, it wasn't even Italy. It was, I think, where was I at? Holidays last year. I was in Malta, I think. Was it Malta? I might have been in Malta, and there is a phrase on a window just at the dock, at the pier in Malta. And it had a phrase like that, happy wife, happy life. And I love it. It's great. So let's see, Bill Wickert, for use, Northerns, why not supplement the heating system with an electric coil to help warm things up until the engine temp is up? Well, that's kind of what they have. I mean, the block heater is kind of what they do, right? In the northern climates, they incorporate that block heater that's threaded into or pushed into the block, and it's got the heating element. And you plug that in with your power, and of course, that heats up the coolant, and it sort of disperses the heat throughout the engine. Now, a lot of Euro cars don't incorporate that. A lot of the Japanese cars nowadays have done away with it. They said, we're giving you better battery power to give you better cranking amps, and we're giving you thinner oil, like synthetic and low grade oils that were very light and thin. So the engine turns easier with more power and more ferocity. And so you don't need those block heaters anymore. But I beg to differ. I've seen that. My truck, I was using synthetic, and my block heater crapped out last year, and I hit 30 below and it wouldn't start. Even with the thinner oil and a good battery, it wouldn't start. So I think there's a limit, but I agree, Bill. Some people use pan heaters. They're stick to the bottom of your pan, plug them in electrical too, and then that can help. But also there's circulation heaters. A lot of diesel engines, commercial engines, they'll put them in line in your cooling system, and it'll actually have a little incorporated pump, and it'll circulate the coolant with the heating element and online. Like you plug that in, and it actually keeps your vehicle warm. So it's great, great systems out there available. Richard Lai, honest reviews are the best. Yeah, Richard, that's true. And that's why my 6-speed reviews, I try to bring some humor because that's me. I'm a kind of that character that those that know me well know that sometimes I look very stoic. Sometimes I look very neutral. Sometimes I'm not smiling, but I come out with that, that Newhart type of comedy, or that dark comedy, that dry humor. And that's kind of how I am. And that's what I like to come out with. So a lot of times people don't pick up on the humor, but it's there. And my reviews try to convey some of that humor. Tech Sama says, what is your opinion on the shrinking car market? Devastating. Absolutely devastating. It's not good in any way, shape, or form. I'm not loving it at all, to be honest. And while I'm talking here, I'm going to try to pull up my URL for the 6-speed reviews, but let me just continue talking about this sedan, the shrinking car sedan market. And I think it's devastating. I think it's terrible to see that. I love cars, and I love cars a lot more than SUVs. I just do. I just love cars. I love being lower to the ground. I like the way they drive. And here, let me just see if I can get this. Sorry, pardon me, everybody. I'm just going to grab the channel URL here for you.
Walk up to 6-speed car.
There, you hear that?
Where we review sports cars, luxury cars.
There you go. Okay, let's just pull that up. Boom. Edit. All right, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to link that down in the chat there for you, hopefully, if I can get this going here. Oof. There. Here you go. There's the URL, everybody. It's a safe link. So that's my YouTube. If you feel free to link it up, to subscribe, because remember, the sooner I get to 1,000 subs, the quicker I'm able to monetize, start renting more quality content, renting vehicles, and I'm able to kind of try to get a little bit more frequency going there, and more interesting cars too, by the way. I will take requests too as well for that. But sedans, yeah, you know what? Oh, I love cars. And to me, the sleepers. Hey, I still have an E60 M5. That I think that kind of spells it out. I have the F-Type. We got the C-Class Benz, the M5. We got a Camry. We've got a Honda Civic. I mean, as you can see, we like our cars. There's a common theme there. Sure, I've got a truck. A truck's always handy. I love trucks. But it's disappointing. I mean, Chevy, we've seen they're getting rid of the last Sayonara. No more cars here this fall. Ford, done away the Fusion. Their cars are gone. GM, GM, Ford, Ram, pretty much everybody's getting rid of their cars. The 300's going away. Everything's going away, and it's not good. And even the ones that are outstanding are starting to get watered down a little bit. I mean, even the Camry now is pure hybrid. And, one thing, did you hear about the new Civic? Did you hear now they're coming back to a 2-liter engine, and they're getting rid of that 1.5 turbo for 25? Yay! That's a win. But yeah, as far as sedans, M5s, the E-Class, AMG, I love cars like that. It's sad to me. I wish there was more, and I wish they reversed that trend. Mario says the death of the wagon hurt me totally. The sport touring, for the Euro fans out there, Volkswagens can appreciate that. Mercedes owners can appreciate that. How about the RS6 Avant? Probably one of the best wagons out there right now, but there's not many of them. And it's sad to see all these cars going away, and everything's getting replaced by turbocharged 4-cylinder hybrids on a 3-row SUV. And while they're practical, quite honestly, you can get the same level of practicality, or 90% of it, in a car. Modern day cars, a lot of them have all-wheel drive systems. They got the big trunks. They got the space, seating for 5. I don't get it. I don't understand with the all-wheel drive systems, the way they're built now. What's why wouldn't there be more people interested? It almost feels like it's a manufacturer's driven type of scenario where the OEMs are driving that traffic rather than the consumers driving, and the consumers just buying what's on the market. That's what it feels like, because GM even admitted that their last sedan here that they're pitching this fall was, I think, their second or third best selling vehicle. So it's not that they're not selling; it's just they're pushing those products out of the market, and I don't like it personally. I think I like sedans. What do we have here? Massaging seats. So Super E-Man 500 says massaging seats, night vision, assistant cameras, heads-up displays. Kind of cool. It all ties together with that. So that's pretty cool too. Luke Walker. Tech. One way to look at it, trucks like F-150 are the number one seller in America, supplementing SUVs, and sedans. SUVs are like splitting the baby. A truck like a car, and hence their popularity. Well, that's just it, right? And I think trucks, they're building them now with luxury amenities. They drive. If you're not looking at that open box back there, they have all the space inside, but they get the extra level of practicality. It's no shock that trucks are growing in popularity, because they have all the luxury now that you're getting in modern, the older luxury cars or SUVs. But now you got that practical side. I don't want to be without my truck. Like, they're so handy when you got to haul stuff around and you want to tow, and they're just so much fun and so easy to use. All LR22. I love that. That's hey, how's it going? Mario, I'll take a wagon into an SUV any day. So yeah, wagon, same thing. If you get a wagon, it's all-wheel drive. Kind of the same idea, really. Just a slightly reduced ride height. Luke Walker, I am old and grew up with station wagons, no SUVs. Yeah, same here. I'm kind of getting up there in age too, and that's kind of the world I come from, so I can relate. Mario says, I really want to see cars actually get lighter since they're moving towards an efficiency. It doesn't make sense that they get heavier year after year. Totally, Mario. You betcha. They're getting heavier for the sake of trying to improve efficiency, but batteries, electric motors, more electrical options, and they're twice the weight that they used to be. Mario, good point. We talked about that. You know what, Bill? Really appreciate it, Bill. Thank you very, very much for your extra support there, Bill. Bill Wickert, really do appreciate that. And Ukrainians have been the best immigrants to Canada. Hey, I do appreciate that, Bill. I'm not one directly immigrant. I'm like third, fourth generation, but now there's the wife over there laughing at me, watching me doing the old live stream. You want to come over here and say hi?
No. Why someone asking if you're an immigrant?
No. You know what, Bill? 100%. And yeah, a lot of great immigrants came this last couple of years. I mean, from Ukraine specifically. My dad's parents came there, so my grandparents were landed, then my dad, then me. So I guess I'm third generation. But yeah, like this recent influx in the last couple of years because of what's going on over in Eastern Europe. It's tragic. It really is. And it's a lot of the Ukrainians. I've ran into a lot of Ukrainians here in the last little while, and that have come directly, and most of them are working hard. They're just trying to assimilate, trying to find their way, trying to navigate, a new life. I mean, a lot of the climate, the trees, the animals look the same, but the language, the buildings, the infrastructure, they're trying to find work. The numbers that I've met, and I've met quite a few already, are just super grateful and absolutely awesome. So yeah, thanks. Thanks, Bill. It's great that you did a shout out there. I can't agree more. It does mean a lot. And, it's tragic to think, and we all have kind of history. And I think just about every, whatever nationality or wherever we come from, fundamentally our backgrounds, probably 80-90% of them at some point in history come from a place of war and battles and hunger and just all kinds of sadness. And I know the Ukrainians have had a few bouts of that over the years. And, I've got, like I said, I'm Ukrainian. I can feel it. I burn, it hurts the relatives. I hear some of the stories. And it's not, and I mean, it is what it is. It's a sad state, but you know what? I'm just glad to see that some of them got out with, you know, in one piece. So thanks again, Bill, for that. I really appreciate that. SYD trains LVR. You're looking like you're having lots of fun being retired while doing something fun. Yeah, you betcha. I really am having lots of fun being retired. And you know what? I often get challenged on that channel on Retiree is Me that you're not retired, you're working, you're still doing YouTube. This is like you could be knitting, right? You could be knitting or in the shop running on a wood lathe, creating little spindles and then selling them online on eBay. You're still working, you're creating something and you've monetized it. But that's not a job. You're retired. And so that's how I see this. I've been doing this. I saw even when I started YouTubing about 9 years ago, and I was working for that toxic corporate environment. And I, you know, about 3, 4, 5 years into the game, like I was 4 years in and I wasn't making money yet on YouTube. So to be creating videos for 4 years, you clearly have to have a passion for it, right? So it was a fun thing. And I looked at it like it was a lot of fun. I like talking about cars, which was what my passion was in the first place. So it all started from a place of passion. It wasn't coming from a place of monetization and a job. It wasn't a job. It was for fun. It's just that it evolved into monetizing. Eventually, it took me 4 or 5 years to start monetizing, and it wasn't much in the beginning. So yes, I am absolutely having the time of my life. Walked away from that toxic, horrible job I was in, and it was great for years. The last 5 years, and those that know, those that were part of that environment know exactly what I'm talking about. And if they're watching, hey, whatever. I honestly, I'm happy to be out of there. And life has never been better than it is today. The fact that I can enjoy, I'm not working. I am retired and I'm loving every single minute of it. And every time I drive by, I'm on the Anthony Hendon. I look over and I see, you know, that work environment, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, no, I'm good. I love to do what I'm doing today, and it's a lot better. It's just a lot more fun. So, LGX2, it will take them some time to figure out what poutine is. Yeah, I think so, right? I presume you're talking about the immigrants. Poutine is absolutely awesome. If anybody doesn't know poutine, come on. Who's got the best poutine around? I think I got one particular that just absolutely knocks them out of the park and is my favorite poutine. Anybody have any specific they want to shout out there? Any poutine locations that they'd like to throw on just as a shout out? While we're waiting for that response, Luke, I can relate to the corporate toxic abyss. I too am gratefully retired from the auto industry meat grinder. Yeah, Luke, you know, it is a meat grinder, a lot of these corporate environments. And I don't even know how to, you know, say it any differently, really. It is a meat grinder. You go in smooth and shiny, you come all bound up, beat up, crunched, and emulsified and ground down to a nub. I mean, maybe it's not quite that bad, but yeah, I mean, it can be, right? And a lot of people I find on Retirees Me do come from a place where they enjoy their work and they're totally fine with work until they're 75. But a lot of people aren't. And you know, I just see it like, why would you work longer in a toxic environment if you have the means? Then you have to. I mean, that's just the way I see that. Luke, yeah, pressure, you betcha. Lots of pressure to perform, lots of push, hustle. And it makes it hard for sure. So, Luke, many I worked with at the director level have passed away. Then they all left on the field. They left it all on the field. You betcha. It's sad, right? It's sad. And I worked with some too, not in the auto industry that way, but in the corporate space. Those that know me from that place, it's sad, you know. And I've said this before, but you know, a few people I know that I worked with that were very close to me in my direct sphere of influence, if you will, have all passed away. Like several of them have passed away. One went in his 40s, and that was tragic. He just became ill one day, and he unfortunately didn't last very long. And two of them passed away at 65. They retired. They didn't make it a year, and they were gone. So it's bad. It's stress. Yeah, you're stress. It's industrial pollutants. It's a lot of things. Some of it's health. Some of them maybe weren't looking after themselves as well as they could have. But there's a variety of things that go on. And sometimes it's that stress that leads you to overeat, sometimes eat poorly, not exercise. And so it's a bit of a convoluted mess that creates this toxic environment that creates, an unhealthy lifestyle. And that drives people into an early grave, sadly. So Luke, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So job stress is bad. We know other things that are bad, high stress, push, the grinder. Of course, shift work is not good for people either. It's proven that it trims years off your life. So, smoking, drinking trims years off your life. Eating lots of fast processed foods trims years off your life. So there's a lot of things, but you know what? Enough about that and the depression. But that's true. And now that's why I love the retired life. I'm able to pull out early enough. I don't know when I'm going to go. It could be tomorrow. Maybe it'll be at 92. But I'll tell you this much. At least the sooner I got out, the better. So I can actually enjoy some, a semblance of retirement. So, and yes, I am doing the YouTube gig, but I am formally retired. I'm retired. I've been, they closed the door on me. They took me to retirement. And so technically I'm pensioned out. I'm done. So everything else is just kind of, I do, more for fun and a little top up. So really that's all it's about. But I do it for the passion mainly because this is what it's about. And I've always loved cars. Bill Wickert, sorry. Man, I think the dog chewing on me there. I remember in Dawson Creek, minus 40C, my truck wouldn't crank. My mechanic told me to put the clutch in, truck cranked. Shows how stiff the oil is. That's funny you say that, Bill. I used to drive standard a lot. I had almost every one of my cars up until I drove the F-Type. Almost every one of my cars were manual. I drove like daily cars. I had a Mazda GLC, which is the old GLC 323. I had a Fiat X19. I had a Mazda RX-7. I had a Toyota Corolla. I had a Plymouth Horizon. I had a BMW 335i. I had what else did I had? And they were all stick, pretty much all stick. I had a few trucks in there. I had a few other cars too, but most of my vehicles were manuals. And I would find the exact same thing. You had to, even the trucks that you didn't need, because a lot of them back in the day, you didn't need the interlock. Like nowadays, you need to put the clutch in to actually engage the interlock so the ignition will start. But back in the day, a lot of them you didn't. You just clutch in, wiggle, 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 make sure it's in neutral, and then you could crank it, right? A lot of the older cars. And I think, Bill, what you're speaking is something like that. And a lot of those didn't necessarily have the interlock, or they're disabled, or they were older vehicles, so they didn't have that interlock. And I found the same thing. If with the clutch engaged, that was enough just to make or break it starting sometimes. And then by putting the clutch in, you get a little extra inertia. There's just because you're actually isolating yourself now from some of the extra oil in the system, in the drive oil that is actually slowing down because the weight of the oil, and it turns so thick, it's like molasses in minus 30, minus 40 weather. It's funny you say that, Bill. I laugh. That just makes me laugh because that's exactly been my experience too, and I kind of live the same way. I've had many of those same kind of situations appear. So yeah, yeah, and again, Luke, you mentioned cancer and heart disease, job stress. Yeah, those are all factors. But so back to features I like about cars. Must have, if I could choose, would be a manual gearbox. Another feature, what would be another feature? Another feature would be, either minimum rear-wheel drive or a rear-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system, if you know what I mean. I mean, if you look at a lot of cars now, they might all be all-wheel drive, but they're predominantly a transversely mounted engine, predominantly a front-wheel drive with a little extra oomph from the back. So it still drives more like a front-wheel drive vehicle. I like a car that drives with rear wheels. I find if you could buy a car that's rear wheel drive with a manual gearbox, that really just stokes my fire. So those are a couple of features I'd like to if I could pick and choose. Um, Bill, I'm getting older and now appreciate my SUV. Can barely get into my wife's Volkswagen CC. Yeah, the CC was that's a low ride. That was a cool little car, with kind of the low slung roof line. That was, I mean, I always like the looks of it. How was the durability on the CC bin? I know some of those 2 liters. I think that's got the EA888 engine in there as well. Um, but those the CC had a cool look, like totally a total departure from Volkswagen, in my opinion. It looked very, very cool. Old Red says any car with a P bottle dispenser for long trips. Yeah, 100%. Just depends who you're traveling with, I guess, right? That'd be my only comment about that. Depends who you're traveling with. Um, um, we also have Trixie saying it looks like a lot of snowflakes or a lot of cold paws. Yeah, because cold's coming, and I think we're seeing snow coming here really, really soon. So Luke Walker says red. That's what the window is for. Yeah, you could do that, but most of it winds up on the side of the car, I think. Trixie, yeah, little paw prints, little puppy dog or cat. I don't know what to make of that. LGX2. Remember when cars used to have ashtrays, walnut dash, carbs, and a choke? Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. LGX2, you know it. My old Fiat X19, it had a choke, a manual choke. So did my old Mazda. Had a manual choke. You had this little knob. You had to kind of pull it and kind of slide it. It had an actual manual choke for your carburetor. That was awesome. Loved it. Carbureted. Very simple. And you could actually throw a little ether if you had trouble starting it. And it was probably almost easier to get running. Ashtrays, yeah. A lot of cars still have ashtrays, but nobody really uses them that way. But yeah, that was funny. Managing the choke was a fine art. Totally. Yeah, you get that sweet spot. It's almost like starting an old snowblower, right? You got to just, oh no, it went too far and it just won't work. So you just knew, right? After a while, you just knew how to operate that. Luke Walker says, I had a 64 Triumph TR4, 2 of them with walnut dash. You know, the Brits and Mario, if you're still online, the Brits had a lot of those types of cars. The Triumphs, of course, Jags, Astons. It wasn't so much the Italian thing. The Italians were more leather and maybe a little bit of aluminum and plastic. Germans were all plastic and leather. But the British stuff was all a lot of walnut. Some of the Mercedes, some German cars went kind of to the walnut finishing, some BMWs, some Mercedes. But yeah, that was a cool kind of look for a while. We had it actually in our X5. So I like that because it feels more authentic, right? Now it's all brushed aluminum and, well, it looks cool. Or even that high gloss. Now there's that high gloss piano finishing, which looks great when it's brand new, but it wears like crap. It just gets all scuffed. You look at it and it's got new swirls on it. So yeah, and the walnut stuff and the wood grain stuff looks great, and it worked and it lasted a long time. LGX2, anything beats piano black. Yeah, like that again, the piano black looks great in a showroom. And when you first climb in, it's pretty breathtaking, but I'll tell you, sure doesn't last. And now I see a lot of trucks, they're using it on the door pillars, you open the door and the back end of the window pillar there. A lot of them, they'll do that. And you wash your truck once or twice. Trucks are subjected to hard duty sometimes. Just looks like junk after a while. So Trixie says, my next car will be a 2013 GS350. Don't want an endless money pit, and life's too short to drive a Corolla. The GS is one of the best models from Lexus. It's too bad they discontinued the GS models, but the GS were always like a very, very cool Lexus because you brought the sedan aspect, but it was more the bad guy car rather than like an ES, right? Or an IS, which is a little more sporty or slightly smaller. The GS was like a 5 Series sedan. It was just a little bit, a little bit more imposing, if you will. Luke Walker, Mark, what is your pick for favorite Lexus you would personally buy? Oh, Luke. Wow. Lexus. What is my personal favorite? I mean, besides the LFA, which I don't have that kind of cash right now for an LFA, because I think the LFA is ultimately the best Lexus ever. But let's just assume that I'm not spending $1 million. We have Rufus Tufus says the LC500. I would say yes, it's a toss-up for me. If we're talking current generation, let's just say current generation, because old school, I already mentioned the LFA. Current generation, LC500 or IS500. IS500, absolutely awesome car. There's actually one at a local dealership right now. It's got very low miles on it. It's black on black on black on black on black. It's spectacular. I love the car. It looks great with the mean front hood on it. Rear wheel drive, 472 ponies. And it's a little more understated than you'd get with the LC500. But the LC500 definitely, feels very luxurious and bigger, more imposing. It would be a tough draw between the two. One's more practical. The other one's a little bit more dedicated, focused sports, but they're both equally amazing. So, yeah, those would be probably the toss-up. Mario, LC500 with a manual. If you could, yes. Sadly, it can't. Luke, tough call for sure. How about you, Luke? Do you have a preference there? I see we got one LC500 on the board here, 2 LC500s. Mario says, my grandpa had an Austern with tables behind the front seats. We had a camper van years ago too, with tables that around the Chevy, like a boogie van, camper van that had tables there too behind the seats. And it had the steel pipe, push it into the floor, and they had cup holders. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Rocky, previous generation LX570. Yeah, LX570 and even the GX 460, 470s are pretty cool too. And they're going to last forever. LGX2 340IM is lovely, totally is. Rocky or previous generation GX 460. Again, I agree with that. Totally. Those are all cool vehicles. And just if you just want a vehicle that runs for pretty much indefinitely, you'll get so sick of it. You'll get so bored of it. It'll become annoyingly boring before it breaks and wears out. Like, that's just really what those become. The V8 Lexus vehicles, they're so good. You'll want to buy something else just because you get bored of it, just because you've had it for so long. And that's a good thing. That's sincerely a good thing. See, Luke Walker, Mark, do you have a go-to place online you car shop? Yeah, not really. I mean, I use the usuals, right? I look at the typical Facebook marketplace. I go Kijiji here locally. We have a site called Kijiji, Kijiji. I do look at Auto Traders, but I find like they all have their thing, right? Kijiji's full of like crap. Like, there's some good stuff in there, but it's shrinking. Marketplace, now the dealers are infiltrating and they're getting in there, and you think you're buying it from a private owner, and it turns out it's some dealer douche nozzle that's actually selling it. And they're all sort of like, dealers find their way into all of this stuff. Not a really good source anymore. I just sort of like look all over the place now. If I'm on a mission to look for a type of vehicle, let's just say I'm in the market for a Ferrari F430. Let's just say hypothetically I'm not. Let's say I am. I'm going to go everywhere. I'm going to probably check. I'm going to look on eBay. I'm going to look on Kijiji, which is rarely there. I'm going to look on Auto Trader. I'm going to look on Facebook. And aside from that, I have local people that I plant the seed with and I can talk to, and some of them will probably offer up, hey, I've got a customer that has one for sale. So a lot of times for specialty cars, I just put out the feelers actually, because some of the best cars out there aren't even listed. Let's just see, Rocky, I'm a little bit biased. Previous generation 4Runner is the best way with 4-liter V6. I agree. And those are becoming, they're holding their value better because now this new 2.4, it's a good looking vehicle, but you know, I think the reliability. Luke, Mark, have you ever bought a car sight unseen on or off eBay Motors? No, but I did the next best thing. I did something that was, it was like partying with some homeless people downtown San Francisco at 3 a.m. Sounds a little bit risky. Okay. My Lamborghini, I bought a Gallardo years ago. You all, a lot of you know I had a Lamborghini Gallardo many years ago. I was shopping for a long time, and you had to travel for those kind of cars. You got to look at, you got to go to Ontario, Quebec, BC, Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and then you got to sometimes look, you know, in the U.S. market. So when I was buying those, when I was shopping for that car, I had to go everywhere. Well, it turns out I found this car in the Okanagan. It was in Osoyoos. For those of you who know Osoyoos, which is on the southern tip, it's almost on the edge of the American-Canadian border. There's a lake that actually bridges into the U.S., and they actually have Coast Guards that protect that lake on the southern edge of the lake. And there was a car there for sale. The price was right. I liked the color. It was white on. I didn't love the interior color. It had gray, but I liked the white Gallardo. I felt them. I thought they were striking, and I had plans to go with, you know, limo tint, blacked out wheels, and I just felt like that was just sex on wheels. So, you know, I was like, that's a car I want. I was looking for white, yellow, or orange were the cars I was looking for. So they were always tough to find. I came across this one, and it was in the Osoyoos. So the guy that bought it acquired it. He only had it for 6 months or a year. He acquired it through some kind of business transaction. Don't know, don't care. I didn't ask too many questions. He wasn't an enthusiast. The shit that he did with this car was pretty obvious. He didn't really care for it. It's a good thing he didn't have it for very long. I asked him all the hard questions. Service history, none. Second key, sorry. Can I get a pre-purchase inspection done? No, because I don't want to let it go, because in the Soyuz, I think it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive to Vancouver, maybe more, 6-hour drive to Vancouver. And to go to Calgary, it was almost the same thing. So there was really no reputable factory dealer. And a lot of people weren't comfortable taking it to some little independent shop. So he wasn't really comfortable in me taking it away. So guess what I did? I looked at it. I drove it. I did a Carfax car proof on it just to make sure it wasn't underwater and it wasn't no collisions. So I knew what I was getting into there. But as far as the mechanical condition, I drove it around the block. Buddy took it up and down. He was pulling gears through the back roads, through the orchards, and I thought I was dying. I thought literally he was going to kill me. I thought we were toast because he's pulling gears. We were third gear, top third gear, going down these straights with these high bushes. And I was like, whoa, slow down. And this guy, he's probably doing, I'm going to say it. He's probably, I don't even want to say it. I better not say it. But he was driving and I was in the passenger seat and I was scared shitless. So anyway, he pulls it in. We talk it over. He had no proof. He had no records, no second key. It needed a little bit of love. The wheels needed some attention because he had them plastic dipped, so they look shitty. It's just there was too many unknowns, but the price was kind of, you know what? The price was speaking my name. So I'm like, well, I can handle the wheels. I can handle this. So I sat down with the guy. I said, look, it runs good. I don't see any smoke or weird noises. It brakes well. It handles good. It follows a straight line. So the only thing I'm concerned with really are the clutches. And we know it's about $15,000 to do a clutch. So sight unseen, really, I couldn't take it in for an inspection. I could have walked away, and I probably should have. But realistically, it turned out to be a freaking deadly car. I bought the car, but I negotiated the price of the clutch. I said, look, I need to do the wheels. I need to buy another $1,000 key. The clutch, we have to assume it's gone. He's like, well, no, it drives fine. I said, well, unless you can prove it to me, I'm assuming this clutch is toast next week. And then with that said, I said, I need $12,000 off the top. So right off the top, we took 15 grand off the price of the vehicle. And I walked out of there and I said, I'll be back in 2 weeks to pick it up with a certified check. And I did. I towed it home and the rest was history. Funny thing was, I drove the car for the next 5 years on the same clutch. And then just before I sold the vehicle, I got the dealer put a new clutch in Calgary. They put a new dealer in clutch in for me. I sold it to the next owner, who then coincidentally was another gentleman from BC who had it for a couple of years. Then he sold it again, and the rest is history there. So I took a big leap of faith, but it turned out fine. So yeah, I don't necessarily recommend buying an Italian exotic car without having it inspected. That's bad news. It's highly risky. But I did. Let's just see. I saw some messages pop up here. Trixie says, slimy, sleek, fast-talking salesman. Of course, you need to think about it. I haven't given enough info into the think about. Come to my office so I can give you something to think about. Yeah, okay. Luke Walker says, Mark, have you ever bought a car sight unseen? Okay, on eBay. Sorry, I'm repeating here. LGX2, what's the most special car you have owned? What's the most special car you have owned? Probably that Lambo. There's no question in my mind. The F-Type was damn close. The F-Type R that I had was honestly, like, you can make all kinds of arguments that it was actually a better car than the Lambo was, because it was probably a hair quicker. Of course, the M5 is also a special car to me, and we still own that one. So that's a great car. It's still in the garage. But I would say the Lambo. It's just every time you got into that car, it felt special. It just felt like I don't know. I can't even put my finger on it. You slide in, you sit, and the seats rock hard. The smell of that wafting leather. You back the car out, it makes all the cool sounds. You drive down the road and you got people staring and looking at the car, and it makes you feel like a rock star, even when you're a poor Joe boy like me, relatively. It delivered all the senses and the elements, the sounds, the looks, you turn back and you look at the car and you're way away from it, and it everything was truly, it delivered on every angle. So Lamborghini, and you can spend a lot more money without getting more from it. And I think the Gallardo or the Gallardo is, or Gallardo or Gallardo, however you want to say it, is without a doubt in my mind the best bang for your buck. You get the looks, you get the fun, the performance, the sound, without going and spending $300,000-$400,000. It's a great car. Luke says, great story about the Lambo. A leap of faith. Sometimes we take the deep dive. Yeah, we do. And maybe a little irresponsible, but again, I negotiated some into that, right? I kind of played that into the game. So Luke says Lambos are special, all of them. I really believe that, and that's why I bought one, because they always gravitated. I've got this mechanic buddy of mine, Ed, who works on a lot of these cars, and he's had some of the older Ferraris show up. I'd see he'd have like a 430 in the garage, then he'd have a Gallardo, then he'd have a 458 Italia, then he'd have an older this and an older that, a Porsche 911, and all these cars that would come and go through his shop. And every time he saw a Gallardo, to me, it was just a little more special. And then the first time I experienced one, he was just starting it up, and he said, jump in. I got to go for a test drive. I got to check, because he just finished rebuilding a clutch. We went for a short drive. He turned on the ignition, and immediately that electrifying surge in your back, where you can feel the vibration of that engine, because it's almost like a stiff motor mounts, the engine behind you, and just that feeling, that vibration. Oh, man. If you've never had a chance to, please, if you're a car enthusiast, you've got to experience that. Rocky, Mazda MX-5 is the best driving vehicle. I would say probably is. Super easy to drive, fun. Joshua Smith, what is your favorite baseball team? Well, I'm going to say it'd have to be the Blue Jays. I got to go shout out for the Canadians. I'm not Toronto. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, I would say I'm definitely pro Prairies, but seeing as we don't have a pro baseball team, I've got to go to Toronto. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Good, bad, or indifferent? New York, hey, always good stuff, right? What's your favorite hockey team? Scott Medlin says. The Oilers, without a doubt, the Edmonton Oilers. And not because we got the McChicken McDavid. We had season tickets years ago when I was growing up. My dad, I was an early teener. I was back in the, I don't know, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s. Oilers, Gretzky, Messier, Curry, Anderson, the big shots, the rock star team. We had season tickets back in those days, and that what really drew me to the team. We've seen lots of changes through the years, lots of ups and downs, and we've never seen a team like that again. But I'm an Oilers fan through and through. I think they're a great team. We have Arunta 5 says, my niece's partner's dad had a Lambo, but he kept crashing it. Ouch. They're easy to crash, especially rear-wheel drive stuff. Now, most of the all-wheel drives now, but they are definitely a high risk of crashing. They got all that weight at the back, lots of extra torque, and there's a huge possibility. A good friend of mine, Ed, the mechanic, I've driven. We've gone in so many drives. I've been in Diablos, Countachs, believe it or not, Murcielagos. I've driven a gated Mercy. I've also driven a Mercy SV. Any V12 Lamborghini it's a breathtaking experience. Believe it. Oh, LGX2. Oh, I really do appreciate that. LGX2. Thanks so much again for the support. I really, really do appreciate it. Again, and I do really love seeing, viewers like yourself that continue come, every week upon every week. It's great to see because it is meaningful to see the same viewers and the repeats, and you do get into these great conversations, and it's almost like grabbing a cup of coffee. I don't have a cup of coffee with me, but it's almost like having a cup of coffee with all of you out there, and that's kind of very much how I see this. So LGX2 says, I want to get a brand new M car, X3M, but don't have a garage, so it'll be on the driveway year round. Is that a problem? I'm in the UK. No, that's not a problem at all. If I could say LGX2, we had our X5 diesel, and the diesels aren't even as well known to be able to start in cold weather. Granted, UK, you probably don't get the 30 below like we do. There's no issue whatsoever. What I find is BMWs have some of the best rust corrosion prevention of any of these luxury brands. They'll beat Mercedes to a pulp for quality. Audi, forget it, can't hold a candle. VAG stuff will rust and corrode. At least my experience, they don't hold up as well. So from the bodywork perspective, they'll hold up. I've never found too many BMWs to leak water, even through sunroofs. I've never really experienced that. Our X5 was amazing. I had a 335 parked on the driveway, and our X5, we had it like 10 years, 12 years. Never had any issues parking outdoors. The paint fades minor, but after like 10 years, maybe every 5 years, give it a good, paint correction or something. But honestly, it'll hold up very, very well. X3M is the best BMW for the best blend of performance and practicality you're going to find right now. I love the, say the 3 Series, 4 Series, but if you want the SUV, you want a little extra ride height, a little bit more roof here, and you like the hatchback, the X3M is the vehicle to have. I like it more than the 5 Series now because you get that hot rod M engine in there now. It's just on another level. It also gets a ZF 8-speed, whereas you get I think it's the ASIN or something like that on the smaller X1s and that. So the X3 is the sweet spot. In my opinion, the sweet spot, you get the accent lighting, the big sunroof, and you can get the M engine. Forget about it. That's the engine. That's the car. And it'll be totally fine sitting on the driveway. It's really more about the theft angle. If you're concerned, make sure that you've got all those angles covered. I see people putting Denver boots on their vehicles too. But no, I would have no concern with parking a car. My wife as well parks her C300 on the driveway every single day. Even modern cars are all pretty good. It's not like an old British convertible where you're going to fill it up like a fishbowl with water. No, that BMW would be very, very good. Arunta says, is it true Ford are going to make cars again? I'm not sure about EVs. I think Farley just said, Farley said a few things. He's also said that he loves driving around that electric car that came from China. That's the latest news he likes to chirp about, that he's loving driving the competition's car. So I don't, take him with a grain. He says he also wants to bring fun back to the game, right? They got the Mustang and they're the only ones standing. The Camaros are going away. Challengers V8s are going away. So the Mustang's the only one left on the block. LGX2, thanks, 100%. And again, thanks again so much for the extra support. I really appreciate that. Ford might bring more fun to the table. They might bring cars back to the game. It's hard to say. They say that now. You know what? It seems to change every 6 months. They're sort of their perspective, and who knows? They're going to read the wall. They're going to read the audience and see what people are looking for. I think it's like anything. If there's an influence and a push and a lean towards one way, they're going to follow that. They're very instinctual that way. I don't think Ford wants to drive the traffic. I think they're kind of reading what's going on. That's why they're not going nuts with the EVs. They're going hybrids. I think they're playing that half step back, watch this guy get eaten by the bear so that I can respond, right? That's sort of the angle that I see it. That Ford they're close enough to the front without being the leader. If you're the leader, they're going to take your head off. But if you're a half step back, you can watch as the decimation happens in front of you. So I think they're gonna look at stuff like that. They might bring in cars back, and I think it's a possibility. LGX2, love your content and supporting the channel. Again, so much. Thanks again so much for that. And everybody here too. I do appreciate seeing the same names come back over and over and over again. It's great. And this inspires me, these Friday afternoon chit chats. It's great. These live streams are great opportunity, have a connection before we hit the weekend. And it's, put everybody in a good mood. Hopefully answer some questions, have some fun, some chit chat, maybe grab a coffee. Maybe next time I got to have a coffee for this talk here. But Night of Alemia, you think Nissan will end up worse than Stellantis? They're in the same boat, really, in my mind. Other than there's a key difference. Stellantis just can't get out of their own way. And there's an arrogance with Stellantis that believes that their product, their junk, is worth more than it's worth. Whereas Nissan, I don't think has so much the arrogance. I think Nissan's just stuck with their pants down, that they haven't created enough innovative vehicles lately. Customers are looking for something a little different that Nissan just can't deliver on right now. And I think sales are down and they're trying to incentivize their product. It's hard to say. I think Nissan's going to try to dig themselves out of a hole. And whereas Stellantis, I think they're just arrogant. And I think they're going to continue trying to push their luck. But we'll see. Could begin and end with the CEO, right? Tech Sarma says the EV surge was overzealous. Totally. And Ford's realizing that. Interestingly enough, GM, if you extrapolate, GM's been having some great here this year. GM's been doing amazing with sales on some of their EV vehicles. And oddly enough, if you extrapolate on the rate of growth, GM might actually outpace Tesla. So I guess we'll see. See how this plays out. Jai Singh, hey, welcome back there, Jai. Long time no talk. Hey, Mark, how many years are needed before we can determine whether a new model, if reliable or not? It's funny you asked that, because I was talking to this gentleman who cornered me the other day. I was out for a walk. I was about to film my vlog for my Retiree Is Me channel. And he said, hey, you do YouTube, right? Hey, you do. And so he came over, he pulled over, we chatted for like an hour. It was a great catch-up session. And we actually talked about this because he was looking at buying into new Toyota. And he was looking at buying, maybe looking at the new Tundra, the Tacoma, but the reliability challenges that they've had with the 3.4s and the 2.4s and all that jazz. And we talked about this. And I truly believe car companies like Toyota and I mean, some are just dumb. They just never figure it out. So if you're talking about Stellantis, forget about it. It's long term. I don't think they'll ever figure it out. And I think you either like the product or you don't, and you're going to take it for its nuances. But in terms of most brands, and Toyota's a key one that Lexus and Toyota, 3 years. First year comes out, don't bother. Second year, they're usually still sorting out some of the issues. By the third year, usually they've got it figured out. And I would say that largely applies to a lot of car manufacturers. 3 years feels like the right spin. Again, there's car brands that will never get it right, and there's a track record. So if you know what you know, then you kind of go with that. If you know, for example, like you say, Ram, they've had bad V8 engines for years. Don't think all of a sudden their new Turbo 6 is going to be all of a sudden this rock star of reliability. It's a drastic shift. I would wait at least 3 to 5 years before you get comfortable with that vehicle. Now, I know, Jai, you were looking at some Volkswagens and some Audis. Some engines have proven themselves. The 2.5 has been around a long time. To me, that's proven itself in the Audi world. So to me, that would be one I would be okay investing in. The 4-liter turbo V8. It's been put in a lot of models. It's other than a small recall for some cracked engine issues. That was a very small recall number. I would say I put a lot of faith in that 4-liter turbo V8. So 3 years. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Rufus Doofus says GM hit a home run with the C8. Yeah, they absolutely did. Great car. Have you seen some of the new numbers? 233 miles an hour with that new ZR1? Ridiculous. Night of Alemia says, I think GM canceling the Volt or Bolt car would be a shot in the foot. That's funny. But yeah, I kind of wonder why they did that. I mean, here's my theory. The Volt, bye-bye. That went away. That was sort of early vintage. That was almost like the Nissan Leaf, that trash. It's kind of old everything. But the Bolt, I think the problems they had there were there was all those fires, and they were sitting on people's driveways burning. And there was this natural reputation, even though they were working through figuring that out and trying to fix up the issues and the recalls. I think the best thing that they thought was, you know what, let's make that disappear. Let's get rid of that, flush the whole brand, the whole model, and the reputation with it. Let's throw it all, the baby in the bathwater and everything, right? So I think that was the attitude, in my opinion. I'm not an insider at GM, but that's the way I saw it. There's too much bad karma with that car. So they thought, we better just turf this thing and start somewhere else. And I think that's kind of where things landed, in my opinion. Ruta 5, Toyota are having issues downsizing motors and using turbos. Their strengths before was not changing and working on reliability. See, part of the problem, Ruta 5, you betcha, a lot of it is reliability, but there's a key thing here. And I saw this other YouTuber, and I would agree with this because I was going down the same train of thought, and I was watching a video, and he claims that he's kind of a Toyota expert. And the idea behind that is that Toyota used to build products that were reliable, but they had looser tolerances. They were not a sloppier engine, but they could tolerate abusive behavior. In other words, extended oil services didn't seem to hurt them that much because these engines weren't that high strung. You could neglect coolant changes, oil changes, but they would keep running and you could still get a lot of miles out of them. The problem now is the modern Toyota engines are more advanced. You've got, the dual valve VVTi systems. You've got, all these different technologies within the engine. You've got turbocharging, direct injection, and a lot of these rely on oiling now. And so there's a lot more sensitivity in the engines. And so tighter tolerances, more technology, even with Toyota, means that they're almost as reliable as they've always been if you advance the maintenance. But if you're coming from the old kind of a legacy Toyotas, and then you take those behaviors and you transition them or transfer them to the new type of Toyota, you'll be grossly disappointed because now you've got to do more maintenance on the new Toyotas, kind of more in line with everybody else. And even if they give you extended maintenance intervals, I wouldn't do that. I would do more frequent oil changes. Oil's cheap, engines aren't. So I hope that helps. CC, Night of Alemia, Top Gear had an episode where they tried to kill an old Hilux, but they froze. Oh, yeah, I saw that. And they had sand in there and water, and it still started. It was sloppy, but it ran. That was awesome. Arunta 5, I just wonder if the power of Tesla is too much. There were 2 cars that crashed, one in Canada and one in Europe, both high speed. Car's not that strong. I feel myself. The power is incredible. I said this before. I've driven the Plaids, which is the most powerful Teslas you can get. X Plaid and S Plaid. They both have 1,000 horsepower. And the first thing that came to mind was 2 things. Holy shit, my breath just got pulled out of my chest. Like, it is overwhelming. And B, they really should have a special license for cars this powerful. Enough said. I don't disagree with that. I think there's a risk. So yeah, I think there's some technology. So if you're talking about features, I already mentioned a couple of things back to the original video. Oh, and by the way, for anybody joining in late, if you can go over to 6-Speed Car Reviews, 6-Speed Reviews, I shared it in the link here. Maybe I share it again here. Let's see if I can put it in there again. Boom. If you have not already subscribed to 6-Speed Reviews, I am trying to build a channel, and with the intent of trying to monetize it realistically, trying to get to 1,000. So then I can, the idea is be able to afford to rent more cars, get more access, more content, and build a channel to where I'd like to see it and where I think it belongs. You know, Harry's Garage, he's an old timer. I'm not getting younger, but I don't care. It doesn't matter how old you are. I want to bring value and true candid conversation to car reviews. So, anybody who's interested in heading on over there, give me a subscribe, like, hey, say shout out, hi. I'd love to hear even you coming from here to say, hey, I came from ECPP. That'd be great to hear that. So thanks, everybody. Luke Walker subbed. Thanks again there, Luke. I do appreciate that. That's awesome. Rust of Doofus, or Rufus Doofus. We'll definitely check out 6-Speed. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so the 3 features of new cars: manual transmissions, rear-wheel drive, and the drum roll, everybody, naturally aspirated drivetrains. So that's ultimately where I'd, if I could pick and choose, if I could basically sign the check on a new car, ultimately what I'm getting at is technology is great. It's new. There's a lot of great things going on right now for safety and reliability, but really it's about simplicity, and simplicity in the driving experience just makes it fun and rewarding. So thanks, everybody. You know what? I got to go. I hope everybody has an absolute wonderful weekend. Thanks again. And we'll definitely see you probably tomorrow morning. I've got the next video coming out, of course, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. MST. And of course, Monday morning, same thing, 8 o'clock. Hope to see each and every one of you. And I hope you all have an amazing weekend. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.